All right, we are very, very luckily joined by the one and only Chad Fletcher, all the way from Canggu, Bali. G'day, Fletch. How are you, mate?
G'day, boys. Thanks for having me along.
Oh, mate, it's a genuine pleasure. Now, we start with one question with all of our guests, but before I get there, I just want to give our listeners right off the top an understanding of Chad Fletcher as a footballer. Now, I did a little bit of a bit of research, which is sometimes rare for me, Fletch. Just wanted to get an understanding of you as a footballer. Have a listen to this, Dan Const.
Let's go.
Right, was picked up in the rookie draft with pick 28 in 1998. Didn't play a lot of games in his first year. Played almost a full season in his second year. In his third year, 2001, he was third in the best and fairest. Fourth year, 2002, fourth in the best and fairest. Third year, 2003, third in the best and fairest. Fourth year, second in the best and fairest in 2004. Fourth in 2005. Won a premiership in 2006. And this is amongst some of the greats of all time. Judd, Cousins, Kerr, Cox.
Good company.
Chad Fletcher's sometimes the forgotten man, but here on BackChat Podcast, and I'm not going to say podcast, BackChat Sports Show, you are not forgotten. You are one of the all-time midfielders of the greatest of all time, Chad Fletcher.
Thanks, guys. It's a beautiful rap. I don't know if I've ever heard that before. It's a nice little running sheet, isn't it?
Well,
put that in my resume.
Well, look, I've known you for a long time. Obviously, played a bit of footy with you, but kept in contact while you've been over in Bali and for the last sort of 10, 15 years. I put my hand up and say I didn't realise how good you were at football.
I don't know what to say to that, but thanks. It's I guess playing in that star-studded midfield, you do get lost a little bit, which was perfect for my sort of character. I never wanted to be in the limelight. Always wanted to go under the radar a bit, and I'd always. When I first started, I played with a run with roll with a lot of the opposition's great midfielders. So those guys never really seemed to get the recognition externally, which sort of suited me. But internally, obviously, your player group and your coaching staff see the hard work you do to nullify one of the opposition's key players, and that was sort of my starting when I first started under Ken Judge. He was more about teaching me how the good players play and where they run and where they position themselves, and that was sort of the making of me basically learning off the greats like Robert Harvey and those Andrew McLeod and those sort of players, and that sort of taught me. And then once I did 4 or 5 years of that, then it sort of became a bit more of a freewheeling role for me. But again, I was sort of fortunate enough to get probably the third string midfielder in the opposition. So, mate, I'll take that for sure.
Well, I mean, you were always a prolific ball winner, though. So I think sort of saying that you were a tagger, I think that's a bit rough on yourself. Was it always footy? Like when you were growing up, did you always want to play footy at a professional level? Is that the only sport you did? Oh, actually, pump the brakes. I have just forgotten. Cardinals sitting here on BackChat Sports Show. Fletch, I've got to ask off the top. We all know what you've done as a footballer. I've just read out your run sheet. You were All-Australian in 2004. You're a premiership player 2006. You're a great footballer. That's awesome. What is your greatest sporting achievement not on the football field? We don't care how good a footy player we're. What have you done in a sporting sense or a sporting realm or a sporting arena, not on the footy field?
And just to give you some context, we've had people say poker, that they've dominated in poker, chess. So don't feel like you have to, stick to a ball sport.
Okay, give me a minute. Let me just ponder on this.
Also, I'll add, while you're pondering, 30. I think I was reading before, Chad Fletcher 34th in Eagles history of most games played as well.
Yep, 187. He's actually behind me, would you believe? But didn't quite get there, Fletch, unfortunately.
43rd in goals.
Did you get the 200s going?
No, I didn't. No, I think it was like 196.
I reckon. I remember back then when there was games when you were sort of a senior player and you could pick and choose which preseason games you played. And I remember asking Woosha a couple of times, probably 5 or 6 times over the couple of seasons, that I wanted to have a rest this week, and that come to bite me in the ass because now I was just under the 200 club. Because with the 200 club, you obviously include your pre-season games and whatnot. So I think I was 195 or something, and I was rattled the next. When Tyson Stengline got his 200 club tickets and embers, and I was like, oh, might just come under.
That 200 club, I do have that. I've got 2 free tickets to every game for life. Fletch, sorry, mate.
You might have to swing him over, mate.
What are you going to do with them? You can't.
I don't know. I'll probably sell them. I might even sell them and make some cash.
All right, come on. That's enough
time.
Sporting events. Okay. So this is going to be a bit random, but my partner Natalia, her dad rates himself as a bit of an athlete, and 2019 Christmas, which was the last time I was in Australia, we had a bit of banter going on, and he was telling me how he could beat me in a race, and I was like, the competitive side of me came out. So I think it was Christmas Eve. We went down the park. Natalia was there. It was all pretty much shits and giggles, but obviously the competitive side of me kicked in. I was like, right, let's do this. So we drew a line on the park at 2 ends. It was a 50-metre sprint, and Natalia's younger brother, who's borderline professional surfer, so he's a really good athlete, he wanted to join in too because he thought he had both on toast. And off we went. I was like the proper start, like a sprinting start. And he jumped out of the blocks so fast, and I was like, oh, I'm done here. And then I came home with a wet sail, and I reckon the judge is still out, but I reckon I pipped him by about a whisker. And he was mortified. He'd never lived it down. Ever since then, he's been running 10Ks every day to try and get me back.
How long was this race? Was it a long one?
It was 50 metres. I couldn't go longer than 50 metres these days anyway.
That's good.
I reckon that's probably up there with one of my great sporting achievements in a laughing sense. But the other one would probably be surfing Kandui on a really big swell in 2020 August. It was probably the biggest waves I've ever seen, and I paddled out and got a couple of nice ones. So
how big are we talking, Chad?
It wasn't massive, but it was like really angry and thick.
Okay, like just for those that may not be surfers like you and I, maybe Dan, perhaps.
I've gotten on the old booger board every now and then.
To tell Dan how big is not that big, because I know for a fact not that big is big.
It was probably like 8 to 10 foot, but like a really thick 8 to 10 foot. It wasn't like an 8 to 10 foot of big. A nice soft little wave. It was the chunkiest waves I've ever seen, basically, and I was petrified.
Did you
And I paddled out and I snapped a board, and then I went back in and got my mate's board, and then paddled back out, and then I got probably one of the waves of my life, and I was so stoked.
That's pretty. I remember once I was out at Yanship, paddled out maybe 300 meters, and I this is just on like on an esky lead, a bodyboard, and my lead snapped like a massive wave came. I ducked under it, board came out, lead snapped. And then I went in. I was like, "There is no chance I'm coming back after that." You've snapped a board and just gone out for more.
No, I think when you see the waves. I'm guessing you don't surf a whole lot, but when you're in a moment when there's like when you're in a moment when there's the waves of your life, you would ride a plank if you could ride anything, because you're not going to get that chance again. And it was through COVID. There was literally 5 other people out. It was the most perfect waves I've ever seen. And, I wasn't going to let that beat me, basically, so I just jumped on any craft that I could and paddled back home. I'm sure, Scully, you do the same.
Oh, well, probably not, mate, because I can't surf either. But you did get drafted. Phil Reid was in your draft class, wasn't he?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so you're a rookie and he was drafted. Phil Reid's gone on to be one of the best big wave surfers in Australia.
Yeah.
You live with him, right?
Amazing. Yes, he parked up with Mum and my family because his mum was, I think, in Geraldton at the time. So he just came and lived with us, and he was a boogie boarder at the time, and then he switched to surfing, and now he's gone next level. He's amazing. He's charging.
I think
there's hope for you still.
Yeah, I was going to say I think he's also into cycling, but that sort of part of his career was cut short.
So Fletch, a few weeks ago on the pod, a few weeks ago on the podcast, I spoke about the Australia Day party at your house where myself and Maddie Spanger rode Phil Reid's bike home. Can you remember this?
I do. I don't remember a whole lot of the party, but I remember that you guys riding home.
And we ruined his bike, and he was absolutely livid.
That was one of the all-time parties that I think I've ever had at Edmondson Crescent, which held a few parties back in the day.
Oh, that's unreal. So he's got his bike back and he's cycling again. Now, Fletch, 2004 All-Australian. You played for Australia around that time as well. Was that Was that the peak of your career other than the premiership? Was that your best footy at that time of your life?
To be honest, Guy, I reckon that was when my sort of name become a little bit more familiar with everyone. But I felt like 202, 203 were probably my best years. But I think 204, I think I was quite high up in the Brownlow, and I don't think I had a good year as I did the year before. But once you have a solid year, I think people recognise you a bit more. And I came second to Juddy in the BNF that year, and he won the Brownlow. So, as much as it was a good year for me, I felt like 2003 was probably my best year in my books. But yeah, so yeah, I think the whole lead up in that 2002 to 2005 were good years for me, and I was surrounded by great players, which obviously always helped.
What was that like? I mean, we've spoken to Sam Butler on this podcast, spoken to Matty Spanger on this podcast. They've both said similar things about that midfield group who, I mean, really, as I said off the top, you were one of the best of it. What was the culture and work rate like playing with Kerr, Judd, Cousins, Braun, Embley, Stengline, Butler? I'll have to put his name in there.
I mean, the work ethic would never ever be questioned. It was like we would cross that white line, and you just knew you knew you was going to be in it for a dogfight with any team you played. I mean, I guess if you put Sydney as an example, I think there was something. It was a ridiculous stat, something like 20 points in combined over 6 or 7 games. That there was the difference. So every time we'd go onto the field, we would know we're in for a dogfight, and we never actually ran over sides. We basically dug deep, and we just got over the line most weeks. We never really pump sides or really as much as we were the dominant side. We never really could put the nail in the coffin quite often as much as we probably should have. Not like Brisbane did, many years before that. They would actually beat sides by 10, 12 goals, whereas we would winning games by 2 or 3 goals. But I reckon that put us in really good stead for the finals, because we knew what it was like to win those tight games, and we knew what we had to do. When things got tight, we would just band together and make it work. And especially Juddy, he was one of the best at that. When we were winning by 10 goals, he would happily admit this. He would check out a lot of the times and just think about the stock market and whatever's on his brain. And but when the chips got going, when the chips got really tough, he would dig deeper than anyone, and he'd find an extra mile, which was really inspiring, because we did I think you might have been in this lesson, Scully. We did ask a few questions around the group, and we wanted to pick Juddy's brain and said what makes him tick, and we asked him what makes him tick, and he basically just said, I don't really care when we're up by 10 goals, like, in a layman's sense. And then we said, okay, well, when do you care? He's like, when we're down by 2 goals, that's when I want to try my hardest. And it was just a real good insight to the way he thinks and the way he, how competitive he is as a person.
Huh.
I wanted to bring you back just to that Sydney West Coast rivalry, because I was having a look at that today, and I do recall that being just so tight. And so the between September 2005 to March 2007, so that includes the 2 grand finals and the 2 finals that you guys played against each other, the margins were 4 points, 4 points, 2 points, 1 point, 1 point, and 1 point. So what did that feel like?
I was somewhat accurate.
Yeah, no, you're probably right. The combined was probably around that. But what was that like going up against? Like, is it just like, oh, these guys again, or like, yeah? How do you sort of mentally get ready for that?
You just know you're in for a war. I mean, and I know you probably feel it too, Scully, over your career. You'd know the sides that you're just going to be in for a tough day, and you might get ahead by 4 goals, but you know they're going to come at some point. And in 2006, when we were fortunate enough to win the grand final, Adam Goods roped it out of the centre, and we were up by a couple of goals or 3 goals, and we had a fair margin, a lead. And then Goods within the first minute dobbed one, and we were just like, here they come. And then after that, I just bashed Jude Bolton on the chest, and I was like, you're not going to get a kick for the next 20 minutes, dude. I'm sorry. And then it was just like game on. It was, we knew they were going to come, but then, starting the final quarter like that was it was a real eye. Like, okay, here they come.
So 2005, you guys lose a grand final. 2006, you win one. No, it's a long time ago now, Fletch. Not trying to make anyone feel old because I feel old talking about it too. But what's the difference there other than losing and winning? The mindset, like how did you guys come out of 2005 going into 2006? Was it a redemption? How did you guys feel? What was the mindset of the group?
Yeah, I think, we knew that we were better. I mean, this has not been biased. We thought we were a better side than Sydney, but they just had a lot of heart, and they never gave up. And we thought, as much as you're pretty fortunate to get to a grand final, as things are got to go really well for the whole year to reach a grand final. And I remember after the grand final, we were distraught, and obviously, and we thought, I think Cuzzy said it on the stage, is like, this is not the end, this is just the beginning. And that sort of really stuck in my mind to think that, we had a good year in 2005 and we deserved to be there. We 50-50, we could have won the game quite simply, but I think all credit to Sydney that they got over the line. They played an amazing game. And then 2006, we just had this resolve that I don't think anyone was going to ever beat us, to be honest. The Adelaide game, the Adelaide game was just come from behind win, where Embers was huge and Cuzzy was huge. And I think after that, we knew that we were going to take it home. There was nothing that was going to stop us, basically.
2006, you win the grand final. So you said that your best footy was 2002, 2003. You're All-Australian 2004. You lose a grand final 2005. You win one in 2006. You personally, how are you in that period? Are you loving it? Has footy always been everything for you? Have you always, some guys are, Matty Priddis, I'll use an example, he lives and breathes footy and always has. Has that been you forever? Was it at that time?
I think when I was really young, I really wanted. My nan was an Olympic runner, and she won a bronze medalist in the 1850s Olympics, probably. I don't know, so long ago. But I always wanted to sort of follow in her footsteps. And she showed me her bronze medal one day, and I was like, right, I just want my name up in lights. So then I sort of went down the footy path, and I always loved the game, but at times it wore me down because, I didn't like the limelight. I never liked the external pressure that I got from, when you go through trumps and in your footy career, you get the media and they just persistently pound you day in, day out. And then I remember speaking to Simon Black and I was talking about it, and he was like, dude, just don't read the papers. Like, just quit all the media, just don't read it. And I did, and that sort of helped me mentally just detach from the external pressure that we often get as footballers, because it's quite hard to bounce back after the media pump you like down to the ground, like it's your fault losing the game, yada yada. And I think it really takes a bit of mental resolve, which I guess over the years I built that up to become quite mentally strong. But at the start, like 2002 and 3, everyone's balloons and whistles when you're playing well, but when you have a couple of bad games in a row and your kicking gets a bit off, and then it's hard to sort of recover from that. But luckily we had good support around the whole footy club that could help you get through that mentally.
Talking about mentally, 2006, you win a premiership. That year doesn't end how you'd want it to end. Now, you take this wherever you want to, mate. We breed this environment, hopefully on BackChat, where guests can be whoever they want to be and talk about what they want to talk about. But 2006 doesn't end the way you want it to end. You go on an end of season footy trip. What happens there happens, and from an external point of view, without being in your shoes, mate, it affects the rest of your life. What do you recall of that period? Again, your mentality, your mindset. Talk me through it.
Yeah, mate, it was really tough. Obviously what happened overseas happened, and I'd like not to talk about that. But in terms of the mental scarring, it didn't just affect me personally. It affected everything. It affected me getting a job, basically, because you would go to a job interview and they'd Google your name, and the first thing that would come up would be, a negative headline, and then the next 3 or 4 would be the same, and you're like, hang on a minute, I've just won a grand final, I've had a really good career, and all of a sudden these negative headlines at the top. So it wasn't just it wasn't just me mentally that it hurt. It was more like a lifestyle thing that really impacted me. Even when I started dating a girl, like, you know, Tegan, I probably remember the Tegan Scully, that wild one. She, her mum Googled my name, and then she was like, "What are you doing with him? He's X, Y, Z." And then then Tegan's like, "Well, he's not a nice guy," and yada yada. So it affects you in a lot of different ways, and mentally, I really struggled with that, to be honest. Like, I did a few things for the AK Foundation. Ended up jumping on probably Reedy's bike and rode to Albany for the Are You OK Foundation, and it was like a 10-day journey. And I engaged with the Are You OK Foundation. We did we stopped off in 10 little towns, just spoke about mental illness and whatnot, and how tough time to build your character. And it was interesting. I actually rode the journey with 4 or 5 Hockey-Roo girls and a friend of mine, Ben Taylor. It was a really cool experience, and it just goes to show how people don't really talk about it unless they've got the license to talk about it. So we would stop off in, let's say, Gin, and we'd ask for questions. We'd do our little spiel of mental illness and mental awareness, and no one would talk unless we started talking about it. And then as soon as we talked, they would all just regurgitate, and they would tell us all their stories, which was the main goal of the ride, was basically to get everyone to talk about their tough times and their demons and get it all out on the surface. So with every negative, there becomes a positive, and I engage with the Are You OK group, which I'm still in contact with, and they're a great organisation. I think it's a great cause. And I see, obviously, a few people, recently have gone through the same sort of issues that I've been through. And it's never nice, but there's always light at the end of the tunnel. You just got to seek help, and you've got to have a really tight friendship group that are always there for you and are willing to talk you through it, even if it's just an ear to listen to. I think it's crucial to getting through those tough periods.
I agree, mate. I do some work with Men's Talks, a mental health organisation for men and men's health. I think everything you've just said is extremely important. If we can stay on it for a second, how having to deal with what you dealt with and reflection on poor decisions made, people in similar situations and having to go through both public and private persecution effectively of things that you've done, is there anything you look back on that, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I mean, you're looking at a great space now. I know you're building some villas over in Bali. You've been there for a long time now. You're settled down. You've got a beautiful partner over there. Is there anything on reflection that you wish you should have done or wish you could have done or did do that would help someone else listening?
Obviously a decision to, I guess when you win a premiership, you're not going to sit there and drink cups of tea. You're going to have a good time with the boys, and that I probably wouldn't give that away for anything. As much as it didn't turn out the way I wanted to turn out, it is what it is. You have to play the cards you've been dealt, and it affected all of us. Obviously, like it affected the footy club, my family, my parents, everyone around me. But in terms of, I guess I was pretty down in the dumps for about 10 or 12 months, because not long after that, my partner left me, and she had 3 boyfriends at the same time, and it was a bit of a wild journey the next 3 years from 2006. And I was up and down, and my footy wasn't going great, and it was really challenging for me, to be honest, Scal. And then once I retired, there was another transition that was really tricky, and I'm sure you're aware of it too, is going from, having everyone at your sort of fingertips to, a lot of the people that were around you at the time of success, they sort of drop away, and you really realise who your true friends are. And obviously the good mates will never go anywhere, but you really just, it's an interesting time. The transition from being a professional sportsman, not just football, into the real world is quite challenging. And I came to Bali 9 years ago, not really knowing what I was going to do, to be honest. I was just like, I needed some fresh air, and needed to surf and just clear my mind a little bit. And then things started to open up when I started to look a bit more positive at life, and villas opened up and some opportunities opened up with a couple of people that I knew. And then from there, it's just sort of been It's been a really relaxing, I guess, out of the limelight and casual life over here. We don't live an extravagant life over here for sure. We, when my friends come over, it's always great to catch up with them. And the time you do catch up with them, you have quality time. You and I went surfing, and it's always, you don't see your mates that often, which sort of sucks. But the time you do spend with them over here is always, you're always having some fun and having some adventures, which is sort of cool.
Well, now we can sort of just, in this period, I feel like I'm just living vicariously through you while you're in Bali and we're trapped in Perth and can't go. So yes. I'm just imagining I'm there in the room with you, and it's sort of like, making me feel a little bit better. What was the biggest learning experience for you once you left footy? Like you said, when you're in the footy club and you've got so much resources at your disposal and so many things are done, leaving then, what was like that biggest learning curve for you?
I guess footy gives you a lot of skills, right? It gives you professionalism, gives you commitment, gives you punctuality, and all these sort of skills that football, you don't really realise it until you post footy and you're like, hang on a minute, footy did me a world of good, not only in terms of playing something you love, but in terms of like real life qualities you should strive for as a human being, like obviously being punctual and committing and like working in a team and all those sort of characteristics that you don't, a lot of people don't really pick up them if they're just in a 9-to-5 job and go to uni. And so I'm really grateful for the opportunity to play, especially at West Coast. It's one of the beautiful and great clubs, and still is, and super proud, and always get really genuine, good people that come through that footy club. It's never, you never have one person that's bigger than the club, which I love about West Coast. And I've heard in the past that their mentality to draft is basically they draft good people over good footballers, which I think holds the footy club in great stead, because you get a bunch of good people that are going to work for each other. It's better than getting two superstars that are going to go out on their own limb and do what they want.
Do you reflect on when you finished up that you were done? You were done mentally, physically? Could you have kept playing? When it all finished up in 2009, I believe. Was that it? You happy with it?
Yeah, mate, I was done. I think I was done at the start of the year, Sco. I could see the new breed coming in, and as much it was really tough because I was playing decent enough footy to get a game, and there was a couple of young kids that were playing in front of me, and we probably weren't in the running to have a real dig at the final series that year. And Woosha just said to me, look, you're in good enough form, but we're looking past 1 year. And I was like, okay, that's fair enough. And it was a really hard pill to swallow. But once I swallowed my ego, I was like, okay, well, it's, there's a bigger picture here. There's a footy club that's at stake here. Like, Masto obviously went on to have a great career, and he was him and Pritis were sort of the ones that were sort of taking my spot, and both of them, great careers. And, it was a really smart decision by West Coast, as much as it was a hard pill to swallow for me. I think it just holds the footy club in great stead, for the future when they look at the future instead of looking at the now. If they're not going to win the grand final that year. Basically.
We had Masto on this podcast, Fletch. It was colourful. We had some good stories out of Mast. One of them that he told was, and I honestly I'd looked past it a little bit. I didn't realise how it had gone down, because he was quite a high number to begin with. He was number 13 when he came to the footy club, and he changed to 7. And I hadn't kind of reflected that was your number. And he told the story about, I guess, you handing the baton on. You gave him his number.
Yeah, it was nice. He's a good kid, Master. I really have a lot of time for him, and he was. I think he might have played in the wrong era, to be honest, Sco. I think he should have played in our era, because there was a bit more of a balance from off-field antics to on-field professionalism, I think. And I think he would probably admit that too.
Yeah,
I think
certainly did.
Once before. But yeah, great kid. How's he going now anyway?
He's killing it, mate. He's working in wholesale wine sales, which is perfect for him. He's a venue manager across Perth. He's got a little company with an ex-teammate, ex-premiership teammate, and Will Schofield, called Heroes and Comrades, where we sell wines and do corporate tastings. And he's going good, mate. He's got a couple of kids now, Tex and Stevie. He's settled into life very nicely outside of the AFL.
He did mention that it was sort of not in a bad way, but it was odd that he sort of connected with a guy sort of in the latter stages of their career when he was really young.
Who was an old boy like you, Fletch.
Yeah,
That's what
sorry,
Dan's
when
trying
you
to
when
say.
you were when you were old, and he just said that usually that doesn't really happen. What was it about him that sort of led you to go like, I'm going to take this guy under my wing a bit and sort of bring him in?
I think just his cheekiness. Like he was a bit of he liked to have he liked to have some antics off the footy field, and I like that in a kid. He got a bit of go in him off the field, and I don't know. I just took a liking to him. He was a really good. There was big raps on him. I think he was number 3 in the draft. Was he, Scully?
Yep.
If I'm wrong, or somewhere pretty high in a really good draft. And there was always big raps on him the first couple of years. Wasn't great for him, and then I saw something in him that I sort of liked, and I sort of took him under my wing a little bit. Him and Butsy was another one that I sort of took a really good liking to. He was a good kid from South Australia, and I don't know. They just had good work ethics, and they were just good humans. And I liked surrounding myself around good humans. And it was so nice to see both of them, especially Masto. When I was well and truly entrenched over here, playing great footy, and it always gives me a buzz to see guys that you might only teach them 1 or 2%, but that 1 or 2%, obviously help them to become something pretty special. So, yeah.
Sorry, speaking of the younger guys, what was your first impression of Scully when he was drafted to the club?
Be honest,
mate. I actually don't remember. So I'm completely honest. Like, I actually don't remember.
That's probably good.
Over the years, obviously we become good friends, and I love him. He's a legend. I actually knew his wife a lot before I really got to know Scully, and I think that's sort of, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, Scully, but that's sort of where we, became a little bit closer, was because of Alex, and then we met, obviously, Pat together and went surfing together and whatnot. And then it just sort of developed from there, and then we catch up in Bali every time you guys are here, and yeah, it's just a really nice. I mean, with good friends, I'm really good mates with Simon Black, and we might talk once every 6 months, but it doesn't matter with good friends in my book. You can check in with them, in a year's time, and they're still the same. The good blokes will be good blokes. And, Embers is similar. He's always going to be Embers. And, it's just nice to have those long-standing friendships that you don't need to nurture the whole way. They're just going to be there forever, basically.
Very kind words by you, mate. You made me remember one time where we were able to bond a little closer, and it actually molds into a little bit of a line of questioning I wanted to follow about some of your modelling career, Fletch. Look, I was going to stitch you up fully, but I'm happy to stitch myself up to start with. Tyson Stengline's sister, Jennifer Stengline, very, very big photographer. We may actually have to have a chat to her on this podcast because she is a very good chat. She now takes photos for Playboy, so we may have to have a chat about that, Dan.
Sure. I guess I could pose, whatever.
Jen was taking some photos in and around Perth, and this is pretty early on in my career, and she organised a photo shoot. Tyson Stengline was there. Dave, Jen's partner at the time, was there. And Chad Fletcher and Will Schofield were the 4 models, and we were sort of going around Scarborough taking photos. Anyway, either that morning or the night before, Fletch, he'd done some modelling professionally, so he liked how he looked. It was important to him to be putting on a good face. Fletch got stung by a bee the day before. Can you remember? And you had to take the whole day of photos. You had to face your right-hand side to the camera because one side was like it had a stroke.
True story.
That's hilarious.
But you know what? Jen is that good at photography, you would never know. That's how amazing Jen is as a photographer.
He was like Two-Face. He was like a water balloon on one side of his face.
Was she the same? Was she the same person that took photos for you when you were trying to sell a house and you were posing in the...
No, that was a different one, mate. Yeah, let's not get into my modelling career. On that same day, Fletch, we took some old vintage surfboards from Patrick's office in West, and he said whoever he gave them to, either you, Tyson Stengline, do not ride these. I distinctly remember taking them down to Scarborough Beach and riding shore breaks with probably $20,000 surfboards. You remember that?
I just remember it clear down at Brighton, Wasn't it Brighton Beach?
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
So talking about your modelling career, look, for those of you who are listening who've been following West Coast for a long time and been in Perth for a long time, Live. Talk to me about your relationship with Live clothing and shop. I just remember you as a model, like not so much of a footballer, just a model.
Is Live outside of Perth?
I don't know. Fletcher will know.
I think Live's gone under. So
oh yeah,
that's pretty much like my modelling career. At the same time, I went under like they did. But there is one funny story. I did a little bit of modelling for them, and just one of their campaigns, and they had a cardboard cutout of me in the Karrinyup shop, the Live store in Karrinyup, and my mother lives quite close to Karrinyup, and she kept going in there and eyeing off this cardboard cutout of me, full size of her son. Anyway, she'd had enough of seeing it. She was like, right, I'm going to go in there one day and I'm just going to grab it. And then she walked in there, she grabbed the cardboard without asking permission, grabbed it. The lady's like, hang on a minute, what are you doing? She's like, I don't care, this is my son. And then she just walked out of the store with me under her arm, and then came home and plonked it in the lounge room. And I'm like, what the heck did you just do? She was like, I asked them. Actually, no, I didn't ask them. I told them I was going to grab this out of the store, and I did. So then there was a cardboard cutout of me in the living room for a couple of days, and it was pretty weird, to be honest.
I was going to ask, where is it now?
Yeah.
Sat there for the last 17 years.
It's been circulating on eBay.
Mum's probably framed it somewhere. Mothers alike.
You at around about that time, you really lent into the West Coast Eagles. There's probably a more AFL general thing. The haircut. Which in over time, over
3/4 shorts,
yeah,
3/4 denim shorts too.
Over time, I guess in the AFL, generational haircuts happen. The shaven or the mullet, but you guys really did the I'm sure there's some straighteners out and about, straightened fringe, bit of a mullet, long sideburns. You were repping that as well. Did you guys talk about that amongst yourselves or having the same haircut?
Great question.
No, but I think Nizzy was one as big advocate of getting rid of it because he didn't want us to be known as thugs.
Yeah, studs.
Boys, get a short back and sides. There's one pretty prominent photo of me when I've got these absolutely disgusting shades on, and I've got a mullet, and I've got a tight large shirt on with 3 buttons down the front, and I've got 3/4 denim shorts on, and I was wearing sandals, and the boys here and my mates here always bring it up.
Well, I think we know what we're posting as the picture for the cover art for this one.
Oh shit! No.
What are you doing now, mate? So we've been bouncing around that you're in Bali. What's life for Chad Fletcher after a career of almost 200 games in a premiership? Where are you? What are you doing?
Yeah, so I've had a little business called the Macraman for 4 or 5 years now, I think it is, and that's ticking along pretty nicely. We've got about 10 staff now, 10 ladies that we hired from a village that didn't have much going on out there. So we went over there and we spoke to a few ladies and trained them how to do macrame. So we've got them on the payroll, which is nice. It's a nice feeling to give some support to some local communities over here, which are well and truly struggling. So that's an e-commerce business which is going well. We've got a few villas being built in Bingen Hill, which is a nice project. We've got 2 villas and 2 studios.
Nice.
That are going to be finished hopefully by the end of the year. So if anyone wants to come
BackChat Bali.
BackChat Bali. BackChat Bali, baby.
There you go. More than welcome to come over and visit us. We might be living next door in one of those villas. So
even better. Perfect.
Be nice and close. But other than that, mate, my day sort of entails. I actually got a funny story. Natalia asked me what my New Year's resolution is, and I just sort of brushed off a few things, and she was softly spoken about a couple of kilos that I've put on in the last sort of couple of months. And I'd sort of recognise it. I do like my food, and I recognise it, but I just didn't want to sort of accept it. And then I went down the 2 days after Natalia mentioned that to me and got out of the water, and you're surfing board shorts over here only, and I walked up to the boys having a few beers at the bar, and they said, "Gee, Chad, you're looking a bit thick." And I'm like, "Whoa, that is the answer, right?" And I went to the gym next day, signed up for 3 months. So every morning I've been going to the gym, and basically I just sit in the spa and the ice bath. I don't really do much work anyway, but it's a good excuse. It's a good excuse.
Your muscles are in great shape.
You're actually looking very good, mate. Like, I've got to be honest, I'm a little bit jealous.
I'm just top half. Top half's okay.
And the black tea
is just different. Yeah. Yeah, the old iceberg theory is happening over here, Scully.
What have you got? So just to finish off, wrap up the footy stuff. 2006 premiership. What memories do you have of that day? I know we sort of moved on, but what do you have of? Like I personally have not a lot of recollections of a lot of days in my football career. Played a lot of games, and I don't look back and think, oh, how good was that? Or something will have to happen to think about it. But the premiership day and the grand final day for me, I have a lot of memories. Do you have fond memories of where's your jumper? Where's your medal? What's 2006 to you?
Oh, my medal. I'll get onto that one later. But I guess, you don't really. I mean, the start of it, you're so laser focused that you don't really hear the crowd. I mean, when you first run out, you hear the crowd, obviously, which you would know, Sco. And then through the game, I remember I touched on that moment when Goodsey grabbed it out of the centre in the last quarter and dogged one from 45 within the first minute, and then I just, bashed my opponent and said, "You're not getting a kick." That was a pretty pivotal moment that I could remember. I remember Juddy running through the middle a couple of times, the crowd roaring, and then I guess when the final siren went, I remember running up to Mark McCoskey. He was pretty unlucky to miss that game, and we were quite tight at the time, and I grabbed him and hugged him and said, "Mate, this one's for you." And, we both had tears in our eyes. It was quite moving, just because there's obviously unlucky people that don't play in the grand final. And obviously it's sort of make your career or not sort of thing. You win a premiership, you're recognised as a premiership player. And if you don't, then you're not really recognised as having that status. So I really felt for Mark. And then after the game, you're so exhausted. Like, everyone wants to come and talk to you. And you didn't really have time just to enjoy it with your mates, with your teammates. So we just sort of locked ourselves in the locker room and just said no one's allowed in, and just sort of drunk a beer together, like nice and casually. And after the song and after all the hoo-ha went down, and then we just sat there for 10 minutes, which was really cool. We just sort of chatted how cool it was and let's enjoy this experience. And then after that, I don't really remember much.
Neither, mate. It's gone. Absolute whitewash. Where's your medal?
Yeah. So we went to the nightclub called Eve Nightclub. And
Oh gosh.
there was a pretty little girl behind the bar, and I actually gave my medal to her that night. I said, "You probably deserve this more than I do." So I gave it to her. And I remember her name. Her name was Pia, actually.
She was serving.
And then again, she was a bar, but yeah, she was a waitress. And then literally at the end of the night, I was ready to go home, and the boys were like, "Dude, where's your medal?" And I'm like, "Holy shit, where is it?" So I went back. They said Pia had clocked off. I think they knew they were playing a joke on me, and I was like, "What?" So she's just taking my medal. I'm never going to see my medal again. And then, like, I was distraught, and I was like, "Oh my god!" So had another couple of shots with a couple of boys.
Oh, that'll fix it. That'll fix it.
Then she appeared, and then she was like, "Oh, it was a joke. Here you go."
Yeah, good joke.
So that was a pretty interesting.
That is very good. That was very good. Scotty Lysaght was the Chad Fletcher of 2018. He did something quite similar. We might have to chat to Scotty about that, though. Mate, I think we can wrap it up. It's been an absolute pleasure, and we appreciate your time all the way from Bali. Can you tell me, before I let you go, the Macraman, where can people buy some of that stuff? Because it's a little bit hot off the press, that. It's difficult to get a hold of some of the stuff you're doing over there. How can people find that?
Yeah, so it's online, so www.themacraman.com. We ship worldwide. Most of our clients in Australia, so shipping's obviously a bit tricky at the moment. So, but we're still flushing the orders out. The best seller at the moment is the camera strap, which is a hand woven little camera strap, which is really hot for us at the moment. But yeah, jump online or the Instagram, at the Macraman. Or send us an email and say g'day, hello@themacraman.com.
I tell you what, that sounds like a BackChat sponsor if I've ever heard one, Dan. Good one. Thanks, mate. Appreciate your time. Well done. Great career, and you're living your best life over there, mate. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Scully. Nice to talk to you, boys.